Hello, I'm Cecile. Today I want to introduce about whiskey. The whiskey name is come from Gaelic usage, which means water of the life. Originally between 1100 and 1300, monks threw the distilling technology to Ireland and Scotland. Since the wine is not easily obtained in Ireland and Scotland, barley beer was distilled into liquid which became whiskey. As we know that the whiskey has limited to apothecary and monasteries until the late 15th centuries. Then I would like to talk about the production method of the whiskey. The first step is the melting. We use the undergo-germinant barley, which contains Scotch, and turn that into the suitable sugar to make the alcohol. And the second step is the immersion, that we use the ground down malt, which is called the grist, added to the warm water to begin the extraction of the suitable sugars. And the third step is the fermentation, is that the wort is cooled and passed into a large tank called wash bags for 48 hours. And the fourth step is the distillation, which is the wort is traditionally distilled twice. And the fifth step is maturation. The spirit is put into ox casks and stored. After that, I want to talk about the region and the brand of the whiskey. There's 6 main countries which produce the whiskey, which is Scotland and the US, the Ireland, the Canada, the Japan, and the Australia. So Scotland made the Scotch, and the US made the bourbon, and Ireland made Irish whiskey, the Canada made the Canadian whiskey, Japan make the Japanese whiskey, and Australia make the Australian whiskey. I have listed 20 most popular brand of the whiskey in the world, which is Bertrand Scotch whiskey, Rich and Roll Canada whiskey, Cecile America whiskey, Woodford Reverse Bourbon whiskey, Divorce Scotch whiskey, Canada Club whiskey, Canada Mist whiskey, Southern Comfort American whiskey, Preferred Bourbon whiskey, Wild Turkey Bourbon whiskey, Johnny Walker Scotch whiskey, Black Virgin Canada whiskey, Evan Williams Bourbon whiskey, Seagram 7 Gram American whiskey, Marcus Mark Bourbon whiskey, Jameson and Rush whiskey, Jim Beam Bourbon whiskey, Fairburn Camden whiskey, Crown Royal Canada whiskey, Jack Dale's Tennessee whiskey. And then I'm going to talk about the service type of the whiskey. The first one is serving with the water. To control it, we just drop a little bit of the water on the top of the whiskey, and it will separate the oil around, which dilute the alcohol blue but not exactly the flavor, so it will still taste very nice. And the second one is serving on the rocks. For it, we just put some nice ice cubes into the glasses and pour the whiskey onto it. And third one is we take a highball glasses, fill it up with the ice, and get some scotch, a little ginger ale. Others, you can also make the shake cocktail with the whiskey as well. After talking about the service type of the whiskey, let's talk about the various uses of the whiskey. In the very beginning, the whiskey is a medicine which has both internal anesthetic use and external antibiotic use, and it has started changing after the American Revolution War to increasing. The reason for that is Scotch and Irish immigrants farmers in Pennsylvania staged an upswing in response to a federal excess tax imposed on whiskey by Alexander Hamilton in 1794. This was successfully subdued by government militarily under orders from President George Washington. Finally, I want to talk about how I will use all this new knowledge of whiskey I learned in my placement. For this placement, I will do the food and marriage attendant. So that means I will have a lot of communication with my guests. During the communications, I can talk with the guests about whiskey brands, and whiskey origins. Also, I can upsell my whiskey in the food orders because I know it well. Thank you a lot for watching this video.